Hey, Dave, fantastic presentation there on the website. Very beneficial information. I know you've been getting a lot of feedback on the contact list, so I'm glad you was able to go through that. Hopefully it helps folks out.
Yeah, I'm happy to give anybody, if they send emails directly to me, I'll certainly respond. The only reason I
Right.
showed how you could get it faster was I know some people may not get information back from me for a couple of days on things like the chat and whatnot. But we'll try giving a little reminder each week about what you can find where, because some of this stuff isn't intuitively obvious where to locate it. And we'll try to
Right.
streamline that, but. Go for
Well,
it.
you know, you have put together how you've been able to assemble and maintain and keep adding to the page the way you do. Yeah, it's beyond me. Do a fabulous job, buddy.
Yeah, it's
Thank
amazing.
you.
Thanks, David.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
No,
Thank
I
you.
know
Yep.
I'm mentoring a kid back in some little suburb outside of Pittsburgh, and some of the bonehead questions that he keeps asking, so when I tell him, go to this website and look at the tutorials and the demo videos we have, because what you're asking, we've got all that information covered. He goes there and he's like, oh my God, this website, I can't believe it's not a pay for website. You guys got so much information there. And I go, yep. I go, that's what we're all about, is sharing the information and getting the how-to wood turning out to everybody. Instead of, a select few thinking they're the ones that came up with it, or they're the ones that only know how to do it. We're proving that it's this trade, this hobby, this skill is for everybody, not just for a select few that figured out how to do something and don't want to share it. So my hat's off to Dave Rhodes on what he does.
Yeah, the videos and the breakouts of the videos is wonderful. I love it.
Right.
And I teach a lot of beginners, and they all have the same questions. So
Yeah.
the same basic questions. So you can I know there's questions I've answered 50 times. But
Yep.
and it's nice to say here. I love being able to say, go here and you can see how somebody's doing it. It saves a lot of time.
Yep.
So
yeah, we've got a lot of good information out there. It's pretty good.
it is.
And it's funny, within the groups, Matt, how so many people have never heard of us. But I know you broadcast us, I broadcast this, Brenda broadcasts this, Andy Schuster broadcasts us. Let's see, Bob used to. I don't think he's on Facebook anymore. But there's so many of us that broadcast the group, but at the same time, I don't see these people coming in. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's an interesting dichotomy, because it's like I've taken a new gig where I'm teaching at a wood turning class every month, an intro to wood turning class, a full weekend long at a local college. And I'm teaching it every month, and I'm scheduled into January, and it's a great gig. But I see, 12 beginners every month who've never seen a wood turn. They've self-taught, or they're trades guys who self-taught, and they don't know there's an AAW. They don't know there's this club. They don't know, that there are local chapters in pretty much every major city in the United States and Canada and overseas and so on. And it's fascinating, because there's just all these resources available. And I mean, my first recommendation to anybody starting off is join a club. Even if you've got to travel an hour to get in the mentor programs, you could spend a couple hours in somebody's shop making shavings. It's the greatest time spent ever. You learn.
It would be.
You learn so much about. I'm going to let Tom in. Hey,
got
Tom, glad you're in. But it's like, people need to. The vast amount of resources out there, and it's. I mean, that when you go to teach beginners, people who have not been a part of a group, that they've learned from YouTube, and they've learned some bad habits sometimes.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
And you have to, I mean, I had one guy in one of the classes I taught that was, he comes from a long, he's been woodworking his entire life. And his thing to do is he was always just sticking the tool tip, the edge into the wood. And I was like, no, you got to find the bevel. You got to ride the bevel, and it's like, he had this habit of always putting the tool into the wood, with a chisel or whatever. And
One
it's
of
like,
the things, Matt, they've learned that from the carbide tools, hold it flat, level, and stick it into the wood, and they think
Right.
they'll do that with
Poke away.
anything. And
Just poke
it's a
away.
recipe for disaster.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
but- Yeah, but Dean, that's not the way to use a good carbide tool either. Oh, I know, but I mean,
but we all learn that. And I try to be very open to people who have carbides, to try to, you can make these work. I mean, I know people who turn great stuff with carbides. So it's like, I try to stay away from that discussion about which is better, because it's, you can make any tool do the job, and it's all
85%
about,
of what Matt, 85% of what I turn is with carbide.
yeah. Was it you who was saying that? No, I was talking to somebody else today earlier, but a guy who's a Facebook friend of mine who is completely self-taught on YouTube, and he's turning out some nice stuff. But he said he uses carbides a lot. He says, I hog with carbides. He says, I just get in there and hog it out with a carbide. So he's found a
Oh, I
way.
love
I've never,
carbides for hollowing.
oh yeah, well,
Yeah,
yeah.
for-
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Those
they all
urns,
started that way, didn't they?
those urns that I did. So I think you guys heard me mention several weeks ago that I was going to go to an estate sale of a wood turner. And so, I went there to get the Carter Products Steady Rest, which I got hanging on the back of the wall. And I wanted the bean set, but another guy beat me to it. He was number 1 in line. I was number 10. And, so I slapped my name on the Carter Products Steady Rest. And then I beeline to the wood turning tools, and I started pulling up out of the rack. And so there was a set of, you had the medium, no, you had the large set, and then the guy had the small set of the Easy Wood carbides to include the swan neck. And so as I was pulling it up, the little ones, and there's a guy right beside me. He's like, "Are you going to take that?" I go, "No, you can have it." And got to the bigger ones, and I'm like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go ahead and get these because they were $70 a pop. And so I got the square, I got the concave square, I got the 16 mil round, and I got the big swan neck with the, I don't know if it's a 12 millimeter or 14 millimeter carbide, but so I used the carbides, on these urns that I did, so first I used the square carbide for turning the brass nut down. Worked beautifully. I mean, I was making 2-inch, 2.5-inch curly cues. I mean, it was like it was coming off a damn drill press.
I love it.
Yeah,
Or
I mean,
a metal. Sounds like a metalworking scribe or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It was sweet. Perfect surface. Of course, same time the basics of the presentation and everything. So so I didn't have that learning curve.
Well, I got to tell you my story, Dane.
And then you'll go next.
Okay.
And then so I did the outside profile of my my urns. Obviously, I'm going to use my high speed for that. And so for that, the outside, I use my skew. And then doing the union for the base, a spindle gouge. But on the inside, I used that carbide, and I was just floored how well it cut, and what an even better surface than my high speed steel cutter bits that I have in my hollowing rig. An even better surface than that. I bet. Obviously, I didn't sand it, because I only got a 1-inch opening in there. No, sorry, inch and a quarter.
Oh, come on, Dane, you can sand that. Figure it out.
Yeah, I know, right? But it didn't need it. It was so smooth, and I was really, really impressed with how that carbide cut on that end grain. Of course, it was cherry. I'm impressed with the way Cherry cuts anyhow. I don't get much cherry to work with out here. And, every time I get, turn a piece, I'm just floored by it, because it turns so easy.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite woods.
Yeah, I mean, I was, I'm hooked on, round carbide for hollow and end grain.
I gotta make
myself a long cutter.
a quick suggestion, Dane. AZ Carbide sells something called the Little Hogger. Try that.
Okay.
What's your
Is that
hollowing
that
rate?
cupped carbide?
Yeah, it's a cupped carbide. It's at a 45-degree angle.
Yes, freaking things are awesome, man.
Oh, it is amazing the cut I get with that.
Yeah.
And he also sells. I do the smoothing on the inside
Yeah,
of
so-
vases with either a
Man, here
circular
it is.
cutter.
Yeah.
Here, let me spotlight myself so you can see it.
Hmm.
So
Oh, I see. Huh.
So it's
Well, all right.
it is cupped. I mean, it's concave.
Is it at a 45-degree angle? No, it's flat.
The bevel.
The angle that it goes into the wood at.
Yeah. So going in, I would call that close to 45.
The one we're talking about, Dane,
No.
the edge, it cups down towards the inside.
Yeah, it looks
Like
like a
like a
hollow,
negative
a
break.
cup tool.
Huh. Okay. Yeah. But that's
It's
the one that
it's
I
a
was
little,
young, and it just it just splayed through it. So
and that,
Well, good. Well, that's cool. And I do I do cleanup with either a circular cutter or a pear-shaped cutter, depending on the contours of the inside, and that cleans
Yeah,
it
I
up
don't
even
have a-
more.
yeah, I don't have a pear shape. So
so
The
Dane,
pears are not that expensive, and you would not believe the finish you get with those.
Dane, you can measure that cutter that's on that swan neck, and I just ordered some cup tools that'll fit on that swan neck. You just got to change the screw.
Yeah.
okay.
The one thing about that though, you do need that booger on an angle when you touch it into the wood.
Yeah. So
Learned
so
that
the whole
hard
time.
way when I first started out.
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah,
way to
so-
shred a piece is putting it straight into the wood.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there was no issue with that. I was cutting on the bias always, and tool rest raised and cutting at center, maybe 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch above center, but same time having it tilted. And I was just filling that inside cavity up with shaving so quick. All right, stop, gonna blow up.
Yeah, that's all right. Sounds like you're doing it right.
Yep.
Cool.
And it was quick, I did the both of them, hollowed out the inside of both of them, shit, like 30 minutes.
Well, I know that with my straight high-speed steel cutters that it was abusive too, because it was hard work. It was a lot of vibration and so on. And with the cutters and the carbides, you don't get that. So
Yeah.
it's a lot easier and a lot quicker and cleaner. So yeah. All right, let's see
you do me a favor?
Joaquin's story.
Do me a favor and text me a link for the Arizona carbide that you're talking about.
I don't think it's Arizona carbide. I think it's just AZ carbide, but I'll
Yeah,
send
it's
you-
AZ
I'll-
now.
Yeah.
I'll put it
was
in, I'll put it
Arizona
in chat,
carbide,
Dane.
Yeah.
Can you text it to me? That way I don't
I
have
will.
to copy and paste from the phone back to myself. Appreciate it. Joaquin. You're up, buddy.
Hey, I was, when I first started out, I couldn't handle that bow gouge, and no one would teach me, not that they wouldn't teach me. It just, I don't know. They weren't teachers back when I joined my club. They just, this is the way you do it, and they'd walk off, And so.
Yeah, right.
I was-
Yeah, I wanted to keep everything.
I was at Craft Supply in Houston, and they suggested the Easy Wood Turn, the carbides, all the carbides. They all used it and said, well, you ought to buy these and use these. So I started using them, And there was a guy that owned AZ Carbide before, Ron Dale. And I hadn't discovered him yet. And so I turned everything from beginning to end with the carbides. And I have a handful of carbides. My hand would be full of these where they busted and cracked and stuff. I didn't know what I was doing. I just turning stuff. And so this is getting too expensive. I have got to learn how to use the bow gouge, you know? And so I end up self-teaching myself through some guys in YouTube to use the bow gouge. But then Dale come along with AZ Carbide, and he was selling them for $5, the same price today as they was back then, 8 years ago. And then Ron bought the company, and he's added quite a few things. And I don't know if you've got the Jameson. You got the Jameson, Dale?
No, I have a monster rig.
Okay.
Not with the swan neck like that. Mine is not a Jameson, but it's similar to the Jameson. They're like children of the same parent. Like Frank Sudol invented the Howling rig.
Well, that's
These
what
guys
I
are-
use that little hogger on, is my Jameson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It works real well.
yeah. I had to buy a part from Jameson's to make mine work. But
Yeah.
yeah,
There's most definitely a place for the carbides. And like you
Yep.
say, hollowing with those things is just unbelievable. You can learn to ride the bevel with them.
Yep.
And then cock them. I mean, Ron, he's
That's
got
the
a
key.
tool out now that it's round where you can cock it back and forth. It's not a square shaft on the thing. And several of them are going to that round stock that makes it a whole lot easier to turn with.
Right.
well, Ron
Bet it
is
would.
selling the heck out of those axe tools that his signature tools.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. They've got a flat, but they also are round, so you can make them do whatever you want them to do. So
Well, if you notice Jimmy Clues, those little mates he's got, I'm
Mhm.
making.
I haven't
And
seen
he-
that.
Yeah, he's
Haven't
got them on a
seen.
22.5 degree angle down.
Okay,
Yeah. And he said he tried all kind of angles, but he went with the 22.5, and you don't get that sheer cutting straight in. You got the negative rake type cut.
gotcha.
Mhm.
Well, you're still getting a good cut because you got it on an angle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
But I think the mate tools have a cupped carbide too, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one good thing about them being down on that angle, 22
Right.
and a half degrees.
Yeah, when I was first started turning, I had a set of really crappy tools, and of course they got dull, and I had no way to sharpen them. So I went to Rockler and said, "Hey, what do you do?" He said, "Well, get you a carbide." So, well, which one do I get? I'll just go over and pick one out. So
Oh,
I
boy.
did, and I managed to get one. It was a straight shaft, but it had one of those cupped cutters on it.
Yeah.
I said, well, how do you use this thing? I'll just hold it flat and level and just push it straight into the wood.
Oh my God.
Dude, I had crap flying all over the shop, man. I busted carbides. I had stuff bouncing off the ceiling. I changed out 2 or 3 before I finally said, this just isn't for me. I put it up and sat on the shelf for probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And then I realized how those things worked and how to use the heck out of that tool now. But
Yeah, there's
it's a
nothing like it
miracle I
for,
didn't kill myself.
for getting shear cuts on the insides of bowls and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Hard to reach angles, clean up the tear out real quick with that
Oh, no,
sucker.
it's a beautiful tool now, but it wasn't when I first got it.
Yeah, I have one of those exact same tools. I think I got mine at Rockler. It's a Rockler design.
Yeah, they quit
Yeah.
making them, but
Yeah, I had no instruction, and I thought it was just a normal carbide with the cup cutter. And first time I put that sucker right straight into a piece of wood, I did exactly the same thing you
oh,
did.
yeah.
Birdwood.
Yeah.
Hey,
In
guys,
pieces.
I just want to thank you. I blew my new lathe out with air, and now I don't have any troubles.
Awesome.
Good deal.
That's good news, Scott.
Fantastic. Yeah.
It's amazing how many things air pressure fixes. It's just-
I know, right?
I think it was full of oil or something over. There's a sensor in there. I was reading on Dane's forum that he sent me that the speed control sensor gets oil on it and then it doesn't want to read right and it screws up the potentiometer. Something
Wow.
stupidly simple.
Yeah, that's pretty
That's
simple.
great. That's great.
So
I know,
tomorrow will be some turning.
There you go. I know a couple of years ago when I bought my the Rikon slow speed grinder, and so I had it for like a month. Next thing you know, I flipped the on off switch, turned it on, and I got nothing. I'm like, you got to be kidding me! I've got it away from the lathe. There's going to be minimum dust getting on it. Pulled the switch cover off, blew it out with air, and turned the switch on, and boom, spun right up.
Yeah, I even found a
Amazing.
little dust hole in the motor, and I blew it the air in there too, just in case there was some kind of crap that got on the inside of the motor somehow.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well-
I get it. I get that ticking on the inside of my, where the belts and the pulleys are inside my Powermatic, and
Yep.
go in there and blow that out. Same deal.
Well, at least it works. I mean, it was pretty disheartening when you put it together today and all you get is an error code.
Yeah.
Starts for 30 seconds and you get an error code.
Yeah, that's
No.
very disheartening.
And putting it together
it-
by yourself is a real treat too.
I'll bet.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the ticking noise there, Matt. Because I got that the other day on my lathe, 3520, coming from within the box. So first thing I check, is the spindle lock, because those are prone to coming loose. So checked it. That wasn't the case. So then I checked the keys that way on the pulleys, and that wasn't the case. And so how you on the back side of the hand wheel, you've got your safety washers there for controlling the tightness of the spindle. So if you get it too tight, then your spindle's going to overheat because you've got it too tight against the bearings. So I always run mine, as loose as possible. Well, as loose as possible, finally, the shaft and the bearing needed to tighten this up one click. So pop that lock washer up, turn it down one to the next unit, put it back down, clicking was over with.
Oh man. Yeah, the first time I had the ticking on the inside of the Powermatic belt cavity there. How some of the wires in there, they're kind of loose.
Yep.
One of those
Yeah,
wires
well,
was actually
mine used to be, but not anymore.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I got them fixed to the walls now, so they can't wander into the pathway of anything moving in there. But those wires they're just kind of hanging out inside the Powermatic.
I know,
It's
right?
it's
Yeah, when I redid the switch, and made my movable switch, I fixed all that engineering that should have been done to begin with.
Yeah, you put it in races or
Yeah.
whatever those things are called that attach to the walls so they don't get loose.
Yep.
That's like, seriously, this is not, for how much I paid for this machine, these things ought to be fixed to the walls.
I know, right?
You'd think.
Yeah, the first time you're like, you got to be kidding me. That's how they did this.
Well, and when I first got out of high school, I spent my summers working at GM assembly lines, with wiring harnesses and stuff. All that
Yeah.
stuff is all guided through the motor cavities. Why aren't they doing that at my lathe?
Right? Like, shoot, I know where it was made at. Their hands are small enough.
Right. You guys remember that movie with a long time ago with Dudley Moore? He gets stuck in an insane asylum, and he's an advertising guy. So he decides to form a company with these advertising with these people from the mental institution. And basically what they're doing is they're telling you the truth about the products. So Volvo, they're boxy, but they're good. It's like,
That sounds familiar.
get your electronics from Japan because Caucasians are just too big.
Yeah. Yep.
And shows
I
these little
watched the-
Japanese guys on the assembly line putting things together, you know.
I watched a documentary about a year ago. Maybe it was 2 years ago. My wife was still here, so and it was on Honda Motor Company. Brenda can probably talk about that. But when they first came to Arkansas or Ohio, I can't remember which place they set up shop first back
Ohio,
in the
Ohio.
late 80s. Was it Ohio?
Yeah,
And so they were talking about how, you know, the Americans, you know, they're too big and they're too clumsy with their hands and they don't move fast enough and constantly got to use a bathroom break and and they were just talking about how things are so different compared to American workers compared to their workers over in the Orient. And it was very enlightening how they were trying to be so ruthless in the way that they expect people to work compared to how Americans work.
yeah. The cultures were
Sure.
very different.
Yes, it is. Yeah. But that was one of the things that always stood out was, oh, in America, the hands are too big and, they have problems, doing the wiring or doing the bearing work, anything that was integral that had to be done by hand. And then, obviously they'd have to do the V-1B visa, to bring in, somebody from the Orient to
Do the
take care of
detail
that
work.
job because of us clumsy Americans.
You funny.
I try to entertain.
Well, I think
Serious,
I'm gonna head.
Same time.
I think I'm gonna head. I think I'm gonna head out, guys. It's getting late. Thanks for
Yeah,
a
okay.
great meeting, and
Yeah, definitely.
I really like the kick here where everybody's doing off center stuff. It's so much fun.
Oh, I know, right? Yeah, it's really taking its own little leg to show off what's being done.
We've had like 4 demos in 3 months or something where people were doing off center stuff.
Yeah.
We've had 3 demos
Yeah, keep them coming.
in less than a month, Matt.
Yeah, true, very true. Well, I'm delighted that everybody's doing it and that Jim Duxbury's jig has taken off so fast. It's cool. Because
Right,
it
yeah, I'm
means that
just waiting.
people are watching and paying attention and
Yeah,
taking,
getting ideas.
Well, I'm waiting for a manufacturer to pick it up, and slap a $300 price tag on it.
Oh, exactly.
You know what
well,
I'm saying?
that second one he showed looks a lot like the big Sorby, the big expensive Sorby one. I mean, it's very similar in the way it operates too. So I think it's Sorby. I don't. One of the UK. Now I'm gonna have to go look it up. One of the UK manufacturers of wood turning tools has got a really high end jig that looks a lot like that.
Yeah, it's very similar to that, Matt. I just seen it a week or so ago when I was looking for something.
Interesting.
I actually have one of the specialty chucks that does that. But
I think they call it
I guess that French guy who does offset turning, I have one of his chucks.
Okay.
Echelon or something.
Yeah, I know who.
Oh,
you're
I
talking
know
about,
who
but I
he
can't
is.
think-
Yeah,
Dang.
it'll do the offset and it'll also do a swing it at different angles and everything.
Yeah.
I don't use it very much, but it was a fun thing.
Right. Another rabbit hole,
Yeah.
Yep, another
as we
rabbit
can
hole.
tell. Another rabbit hole.
Well, there's always
Go
something to
this way.
spend money on.
Go that way.
If you want to spend money, get into ornamental turning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I will with my
that'll dig the hole much deeper and faster and bigger.
Yeah, I know that like the entry level machines are like 16K or something like that, aren't they?
You can get it cheaper than that. You can also go MDF on it and build your own, and spend a whole lot less
Yep.
money on it.
Yeah, there was one of the guys who comes to Campbell's demonstrated those one year there. He had 3 of them made with, what the heck kind of motor was he using? But it was all plywood and salvage motors and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And you can get satisfactory results on doing a lot of stuff with it, so.
Yep. Well, have a good night, everybody. It was a lot of fun. I'll catch you guys next week.
All right, Matt.
Yep. See you later, man.
Have a good week.
See you next week.
Yep, bye.
See you on the line.
Later.
Don, what you got chucked up there?
Nothing. I'm
What you in the process of making there?
nothing. I've had a operation on my arm to put a fissure in, ready for dialysis.
no.
So I can't use the arm.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
How long is it going to be like that?
I don't know. I can't get an answer.
Oh, for God's sake.
Till I get sick of
Look,
it,
that
at any rate.
health issues suck. I'll just put it out there.
Oh, yeah.
Amen. Amen.
Mhm.
Get a new hat there, Joaquin?
I picked it up, that's the SWAT last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They were
I have
shot.
one of those too.
Yeah, they're nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's got a good bill on it.
My last one was better than this one. Real picky about hats. You look at them, you look at the curl and all that stuff, and
Right?
this it don't set as good as the last one I had, but it's okay. Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to wear a hat all the time, but I'd wear them out, get them all dirty and everything like that. And then, I don't know, like a few years ago, and I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, they make them so big up here on the top, and and I don't like that.
Well, don't you have to worry about your head, Dane? Out there in Arizona?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. I used to wear the hats, all the time, but so I got tired of the way they look, so I started wearing bandanas, so I wear a bandana, anytime I'm outside and,
Mhm.
and then here in the shop and whatnot. So, but yeah, I wore a hat for,
Yeah, we
from the time I was spit out,
we had a guy on the job. He got bald. And he went out fishing one day. Well, he got a real nice tan. He was real proud of that tan on the top of his head. And so he quit wearing a hat. And they went fishing the next week. He come back, there was nothing but blisters on top of his head. And it looked so bad, he ended up wearing a wig from then on.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
This is my favorite hat.
What do you got?
My Enterprise hat. And it doesn't poof up in the front. See?
Yeah.
Those are nice and comfortable.